check the waiting room one more time. Looks like everybody that's in is here. All right, we'll keep that open in case there's any other latecomers. But yeah, guys, let's dive right into it. So welcome to another Tuesday DaaS sales workshop. So as I was just talking a little about there with Chip, the main objective and I cover on these workshops each Tuesday is everything to do with high-level sales trainings, tactics. Sometimes it's lessons, more of a Q&A. Of course, it's going to be all more pertaining to how to sell DaaS deals and DaaS, DaaS offerings, etc. But there's going to be kind of a mix of just general sales stuff and stuff more pertinent to data, because some sales trainings or lessons I'm going to cover are going to be applicable whether we're selling data or not. But I try to always make the examples or the analogies more applicable to our DaaS agencies and how we built the Audience Lab sales team here to to be able to close deals at a pretty high level. Speaking of that, one of the people who hopped onto the workshop is an Audience Lab new user and one of our new sales reps. So Jen, nice to see you on here. Hopefully you pick up something you can implement into your bag of tricks here today. And it's been a pleasure working with you here in the last couple of weeks. Thanks for hopping on. So again, guys, yeah, my area of expertise of what I'm going to cover is more about the sales side of things. I'm a co-owner here at Audience Lab. For any of you guys that don't know me, or this is your first workshop, or you're newer into the program, I did miss my regularly scheduled one last Tuesday. Unfortunately, I was down with some back problems. My back was out, and I couldn't get to my chiropractor to the following day, so I was laid up for a couple of days. So appreciate your patience, and I know I had a lot of people sending me messages. I appreciate all that, guys. But now we're back to regular schedule, right? So what we're going to cover today is I'm going to actually pick up from where I was covering two of my last three workshops. I was going through some high-level sales SOPs, and I'm going to dive back into that in a minute and catch everybody up if you didn't attend, or how to catch up, just so you're not lost when I dive right into that. But again, really quickly, as I was going on to say, and I kind of went down a little tangent, my area of expertise within the business and where I work is I run and manage our sales team, whether that's hiring reps, closing deals, building out SOPs, running team meetings, trainings, et cetera, et cetera. I've done that for dozens of other sales teams within my Sales Lab brand. And I work a lot with our marketing, our copy, basically anything from the front end, from people that see our email copy, our messaging, our ads, all the way to the closing of the deal. Now, once the deal is closed and you come in, most of you guys are working closer with our support and fulfillment team. Jaden, Lewis, Andrew, Jeremy, Adam, right? All those guys. Those guys are going to be much better to help with some of the questions you had, Chip, and some of those other workshops. And that's why we have specific ones, right? Office hours, primarily anything to do with audience building, pixel questions, any type of tech support. Media buying is more specified toward looping things into Facebook ad campaigns. And I think you had a question or two around that earlier, Chip. So again, media buying all geared around loading the ads into ad campaigns and leveraging how to do that properly, profitable, and how to actually see results with it, right? Office hours, tech, audience building. Of course, Adam runs weekly workshops. We have Phil doing the new Q&A one that he did earlier today, and he runs an incubator workshop. Mine is primarily around sales and a little bit to do with the messaging and marketing. I can always help with that. I've helped a lot of clients write copy, outreach, outbound messaging, things like that. And what I always start off with, guys, on each one of my sessions, because each week I know we have newcomers into the program, newcomers to the workshop, something I share with all of our clients, regardless of where you're at. Now, one more thing I like to specify early on in these, because we always have people kind of coming in at different tiers. So some people are just in our school community, still getting familiar with Audience Lab, but they might not have yet purchased or have access to the platform. They're going to learn some good stuff, but this is going to be much more applicable to our actual users. Then we have our incubator plan, which again, generally, guys, that's for individuals looking to use the data for themselves, to test it out on maybe one client. Not to say you can't resell and start to get your first client or so with the incubator program. We've seen people be able to do that, but that's not really its primary objective. More for our DaaS clients is where you really come in and get all the resources, enough data, more support calls than you might get in incubator. And that's where we really work on building out your DaaS agency and how to resell it. So again, not to say there's not little outliers and people can't use them outside of what I just said, but generally speaking, that's kind of the three different tiers. You're either kind of new to us, just getting familiar with Audience Lab, but you're not inside the platform yet. You might have our entry-level plan, the incubator. You're testing it out, trying to get results for yourself, one client. Again, maybe just trying to get your first deal, and then you want to upgrade it to DaaS, which I had a great example of a client doing that on my last workshop I was talking about. Or you might already be in our DaaS and you're really focused on, reselling as kind of your key objective. So that I just like to always cover that, because when I get people in here, they're like, I'm an incubator. Is this relevant? Yeah, it's still relevant. But the one difference between incubator and when it comes to reselling is you only have access to very limited data in that plan. It's our entry level plan. So if you're going to go try to sell to 3 or 5 clients, you're not going to have enough data in incubator to fulfill. And I just like to be very clear about that. So guys, what I was saying, and I'm going to share my screen.
Can you repeat that again?
Sure. Which part?
The last sentence about enough data to fill an incubator.
Well, in the incubator program, you only have access to 2 B2B and 2 B2C lists.
Oh, you're talking about in numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's still going to grab the same audience.
Oh, correct. I just mean you're limited to the amount of lists you can.
All right. Okay. Go ahead.
No, it's not going to limit how many are on each list.
Gotcha.
Okay, cool. We're on the same page. Cool. And what I like to share, again, regardless of what program you're in, usually people don't get this unless you have joined one of our paid programs. And sometimes even incubator clients don't see this because this is more geared toward our DaaS clients and resellers. I think this is really relevant, and I like to share it, and I'm willing to share it with people that have any affiliation with Audience Lab, whether you're just getting to know us or you're already in our programs. So I'm going to drop this link in the chat for you guys here in Zoom all in 1 second. And it's also included when I drop any of my replays. But this isn't anything aesthetically pleasing. I didn't make it pretty. This is just the 7 links or 7 resources you need to build out your full data as a service sales process, right? So number 1 says start here. This is a little Google Doc going through the exact process, game plan, timeline, and what I need to build out the proper sales process. Number 2 is a tutorial of me going over that doc and just expounding upon any of the explanations so it's very clear to everybody. Number 3 shows you some of the current ads, email copy, and the messaging that we're using to land new data clients daily, weekly, monthly, etc. Numbers 4 and 5 on my screen, guys. Those are the 2 scripts that we use internally and that we built our sales team with. So number 4 is what I call the triage call, which should be about a 15 to 20-minute call. That I like to always say the triage call really has 2 primary objectives. Number 1 is to really understand if they're a good fit for your program and if your solution can actually help them. And number 2 is to do a soft yes in terms of a financial pre-qualifier. So a very quick example of that is toward the end of the triage call, if I thought the person was a good fit and I wanted to set them for the demo call or the actual sales call, before I get to the end, I would say something like this. So Jen, based off everything we talked about today, when you have your call Thursday with Mark at 2 p.m., if you see a clear path to reach your result and be able to reduce your cost per lead and acquisition by 25%, is there anything that would stop us from investing that day and moving forward and furthering your business, right? So that's what I call a soft yes to a financial pre-qualifier. Yes, I'm going to put the link there momentarily. I just like to explain it before I drop it. 100%. Now, hold on 1 second. Somebody else just popped in the waiting room and then it disappeared off my screen. Sorry, guys. Something just happened. I had a Zoom glitch. Okay, they bounced out anyway. So let me go back to where I was. So anyway, what I was saying is, why do I word it like that? Because there are definitely, multiple ways we can word that. And what a lot of business owners or a lot of scripts in sales say is, hey, Jen, if everything makes sense, would you be willing to invest? And a lot of times people just nod their head or say yes. They don't really think about it. I like to ask, if you listen to the subtlety of the way I asked it the first time, is there anything that would stop you from investing if everything makes sense, right? So that will get them to think about it. And I'm trying to suss out or pull out any objections on the triage call. Hey, Ray, I might not be able to invest because I have a business partner, my spouse, finances. You can find out any type of objections that you don't want to find out when you get to the end of the closing call, right? So if it's partner or spouse, now that we're setting a second call, why don't we set it when we can all be on there so we don't have to set a third call, or we don't get to the end of a sales call and then get that objection. So anything we can do to find reasons why they might not invest so we can better prepare to be able to close on that second call. Number 5 is kind of the full script on what we do on a closing or a demo call. Number 6 is the pitch deck that we use or we put together for all our DaaS clients to use, where it has case studies, just a simple breakdown of how the pitch will help them or how in-market audience will help them. I think we have maybe, 6 to 12 different case studies and examples in there in different industries we can show people results. And then number 7 is just a more expansive explanation or tutorial of me explaining how I would go pitch and price the pixel. Some more tools for how we can, it's got a pixel calculator within that video that shows us how we can run some numbers based on the amount of traffic, average order value, and conversion rate. And we can kind of predict what's being left on the table and what we should see with the pixel. So there's some more detailed explanation about pricing and the difference between retainers, performance-based contracts, et cetera, et cetera. So again, guys, I'm going to go drop that in the chat right now for everybody. And then I will get into today's lesson. So right there in the chat, that's this document, 7 links, how to build out your sales process. If you haven't seen this, or if you hadn't saved it before, jot it down, save it somewhere, and this will be really good to go back to, whether that's today, tomorrow, next week, whenever you begin to build out your sales process. Let me see one thing. I think we had one more question there before I dive into the rest of the lesson. So at some point, can I ask you about the sales process for canvassing and selling lists as a starter? Of course, yeah, we'll get to that at the end, Carrie. I'll save some time for that. Let me get into what I got to cover and we'll swing back to that 100%. Cool. So now I want to dive into today's lesson. And again, every time I run a DaaS sales workshop, within an hour or two after, no matter which school community you're in, we have a couple of different school communities, one for private clients only, one for people that might not yet be in our platform. No matter which one you're in, I go and post the replay. Within that replay, I'm going to include the links to part 1 and 2, because this is the 3rd part of this particular lesson. And I'm finally going to get to finish it today. I really thought it would be 2 weeks, but this is pretty lengthy. So guys, what you're looking at here, if you weren't on any of the previous lessons where I was going over this document, is you can see at the top over here, Cutting Edge Sales SOPs. Now, this is a lengthy document that I put together after, geez, I was going to say weeks, but it was more like months of breaking down top sales teams, top reps, going back and meeting with some mentors and people that have done more business with me, showing me the behind the curtains of their top 5 clients and the biggest sales teams in the industries. And we just broke down all the bullet points and made up this doc. So some of this is more applicable to building and running a sales team. And I know some of you guys might not be there. And a lot of this was also applicable to being a rep, just having one rep, to be able to get better results, whether you're taking calls by yourself right now, whether you have a sales team. So again, if some of this is kind of not where you're at, as I always say on these workshops, just take away what's applicable to you guys. If some of it's like, hey, I'm not there yet, don't worry about it. You know, there are people on this call or watching that are there, and there probably will be a time when you'll be there, but there's going to be stuff we can take away no matter what. So where I wrapped up 2 weeks ago, again, I missed last week's workshop. We ended up on number 6, and we're gonna dive into point 7 here and recap. And again, if you guys find this kind of fascinating, or if you're not following, because I'm gonna kind of recap to some of what was lesson 1 and 2, check out the replay video, and I'll have number 1 and 2 links so you can go check out those workshops should you choose. But again, this is a little more about sales teams, this particularly, but mindset and long-term culture, right? So volume negates luck, and that's a very, very good motto within sales. You can look at that a couple different ways, but primarily the principle is high rep volume accelerates skill mastery, right? So the more reps I get, the more I'm going to excel, the more I'm going to get comfortable, the more I'm just going to get better, right? And see better results. So what that really means is, like, I don't judge a rep based off 4 calls and be like, oh, they didn't close any deals, they have a 0% close rate, right? Like, you got to get some reps in there, whether you're new into your own business, whether you're hiring a rep into your business, or whether you have a bunch of reps, right? They need some volume, and the more volume we can get our reps will accelerate the skill and mastery. Jen, you're a great example of just getting thrown right into there, just diving in and taking reps. So I'm going to probably kick it to you at the end of the call if you're still on, and ask for some insight or your mindset doing that. I thought it was really cool, but you just wanted to dive right in and get reps before you were even really fully trained up or had all the SOPs. So that was awesome. I love seeing, reps that do that. Implementation, very simply, 2 things we should always look at when we're trying to look at the volume section of things, right? Goal setting. So number 1, let's try to double or triple the daily call quota, right? Versus our less driven competitors. There's a lot of people out there in all of our industries. I don't care who we're serving or what we're selling. There's a lot of people that are complacent, that are just like, hey, I'm going to spend this much on ads, whatever comes in, right? If there's ways we can focus on bringing in other avenues of calls, making our ads, whether it's spending more or just, split testing more campaigns or getting better hooks, making them convert better. We all know in this space, there could be 2 different people running ads, same business, they could compete with one another. And one guy, they could both be spending the same. One guy could book 20 calls, the other guy could book 7 calls. Why is that? Because one person is a lot more focused on really upping their daily call quota because they're always improving, no matter what that is, whether that's investing more, whether that's refining their process, their copy, their creative, their hooks, their angles, etc. So how can we focus on double or tripling the daily call quota? If you're not there yet, don't worry about doubling or tripling the quota. But once you're starting to get consistent calls, start to think there are ways, if we're driven and if we're resourceful, to do that. There's actually many ways. And a lot of these things I'm going to cover on, I've covered on the first 2 parts, and I'm going to dive into here today, are things we can break down in individual lessons that are more applicable to you guys, right? Now, tracking personal metrics. This is something that Jen knows I'm kind of a stickler on. I'm a numbers-driven guy. Hell, I own a data company, so if I didn't operate off data and metrics, I'd be kind of not drinking my own Kool-Aid, for lack of a better phrase. But show your own improvement curve, right? Calls made, closes made. And I just gave a couple examples. I'll actually show you an example of our tracking sheet before we get off the call here today. Show you what we track with our reps and all that stuff. But it's really important. A lot of business owners just don't know their metrics, whether that's sales, conversion rates, number of calls booked, number of closed deals, close percentage, revenue per booking. There's all kinds of things that help us track where our money's going and where it's most effective and efficient. And as we grow, that becomes more and more applicable, right? Now, something to remember in sales that I think people often forget is they're like, I feel like I have to persuade, I have to convince, right, people into buying. People actually want to buy, right? We all know that. People definitely want to buy. They don't want to be sold. We've all heard that phrase before. They don't want to be forced into buying. They don't want to feel like they're being strong-armed. They're being persuaded, right? So the more natural we can keep our conversation and our sales process, the more we're going to keep them in that buying pocket, right? I'm going to talk about a couple things here. So a couple things that I found most relevant when, again, diving in and building this document and looking into a lot of numbers and a lot of different sales teams. And really, I wish I knew the amount of calls I've audited and listened to of professional sales reps to really get this data. But one thing I've noticed is stay curious, right? So if they express hesitation, simply ask more questions politely to find out the real right reason. That usually comes into when we're getting objections, but even throughout when you're getting your discovery phase, when you're assessing the problem or the solution, even when you get into the pitch, if they express any hesitation, apprehension, all right, politely ask more questions to find out what's really at the root of that, because a lot of times it's not what they're initially saying or portraying. And as always, and the only reason I put this in here is this goes back to what I was just saying with auditing a lot of sales calls. There are reps that, whether they notice it or not, they're actually fighting with the prospects. They're arguing back and forth rather than trying to get on the same page, right? So remember, as a sales rep, you are on their team helping them get what they want. If we do a sales process right, and as I just talked about with that previous sheet, and we have a 2-call process, and the first call is solely to disqualify people that aren't fits. Well, when we get to the second call, we've already pre-qualified them as somebody that wants what we have to offer, right? So they're on that call for a reason. They want what we have. Now, is it the right fit for them, and does it make sense? And that's what that whole discussion is about. So getting on the same page and being on their team and helping them get what they want is what you're actually doing as a rep. And I think a lot of people overlook that. A lot of people have the perception of sales as being sleazy, as being sleazy, scammy, scummy, or I could go on and on and on. And a lot of people kind of, when you hear sales, you kind of close your eyes and envision that, used car sales guy that's going to sell you a car that's going to die within 30 days off to the lot, right? And all these snake oil salesmen, right? All these terms we've heard. But in essence, if you do sales the way we teach it and the way we portray it, ethical, solution-based, in the best interest of the prospect, none of that stuff happens. There's no scammy, there's no sleazy. They're having a conversation, seeing if you can help somebody, if it makes sense, if it's a fit, let's rock and roll. It's really about that, right? So where do we use testimonials for their belief, right? Or should we be using them? Now, I think we all should be. I think some people overdo this or put too much emphasis on it. This is not a defining factor if somebody will buy or not, but it can help increase conviction, overturn some hesitancy or apprehension, as we talked about earlier, right? So the principle of reading testimonials for belief is higher conviction, and higher conviction yields the right tone naturally. And another phrase, I use that term there, another phrase is, it's more likely to keep them in the buying pocket when they have higher conviction and they're on the same wavelength, right? Now, there's three main ways that people actually implement this. There's more, but these are the three main ways. And it's weekly story time. So if you have a community, and not just say on a sales call, but this would be more if you run as some type of Facebook group, school community, any type of community where prospects or people that are getting aware of your brand or your product are viewing any content or posts, share real-time success stories at sales meetings, and then share them to your community weekly as well, right? Tie the testimonial to the prospect. So a lot of times, and Jen, I think you've heard this on one or two of my calls, and you did a really good job of this actually on our role play. That was one of the notes I took from you that you did well when we did the role play. But tie in other testimonials to this particular prospect situation. Okay, Joe, so we worked with Bob and his company, who happened to be the exact same industry and market as you, and these are the results that they saw. Now, if your business saw a drop in cost per lead and acquisition from 25 to 40%, would your ads be severely more profitable, and would you be able to compete with your competition better? Right? If I say that, it's going to be hard for him to give me something negative back. You know what I mean? I only ask that question because he's going to come back saying, well, yeah, right, it would make a difference, right? It would make me more profitable. Yeah, I would like to see the results Bob's seeing. Oh, he's in the exact same market, niche, and industry. So now it's not like just, hey, Audience Lab can do it, or hey, we can do it for other people. It's like, hey, we can do it for other people in your exact shoes, your exact situation. So it feels a lot more personal, the result, the product, and ultimately the solution of the result they're looking for. The more we can make it applicable to them, their industry, and them individually, the more they're going to feel like it's the right product for them to go with. And then also tie the testimonial to the rep. So this is something I like to do in some of our sales meetings. And again, this is more team oriented. But when I see a client get a great result, I like to go like, hey, Mark, great job. You enrolled Bob, and he was one of our best DaaS clients this month. Great job, convincing him to hop into the program, or great job enrolling him to the program because he's our ideal client, right? I go back to our reps and I say that a lot. I just got off a call with this guy. Great job, Adrian. This is the exact guy, we want to be getting into this program, because no matter what we're selling, we're all going to be a little more lenient sometimes on, especially early on like really only enrolling our ideal clients. We'll take in people outside of that for the revenue. And as you grow more, and as you start to see the difference between working with clients outside of your ideal avatar and then with your ideal avatar, it's kind of night and day. And we put more emphasis on, I don't even care about the other money from my not ideal guy. Let's not even roll him and make him an offer. Let's just focus more on this persona. And you're able to dial in your ideal client a bit more. Hold on. Let me let my dog out super quick. It wouldn't be a DaaS sales workshop without one of my my dog's name, Adora Interruptions. But yeah, so now number 7.4, I should say. Don't be cute, be consistent. I could not agree with this more and more and more. This is so true. Consistency in terms of your preparation, your diligence with outreach, your evolving your skill set and your personal development, your professional development. Be consistent with all of those things, right? So the principle, the basic fundamentals are done relentlessly. Basic fundamentals done relentlessly beat fancy tricks. I've seen this over and over and over again. This couldn't be more true. And I can't agree with it more. So true. A lot of people try to get fancy with automations, with AI, with all those other things, right? Which is great. Like, use the tools that are there, but nothing will ever replace personal attention, personal messaging, and a little extra consistent outreach or personal touch within your sales process, right? And I talked about that, well, probably in lesson 1 or 2, I know, earlier in this document. Implementation, no overcomplicating. Simple is much better. Simple is clear. People understand simple. People can follow simple. So continually reinforce simple SOP, respond fast, schedule fast, follow the script, and handle objections systematically. These are things that can be relevant whether you're running a team or whether you're taking calls yourself as a business owner, whether you're a sales rep yourself, whether you have one rep. Take away, what's applicable. Are we doing those things? Are we responding fast? Are we scheduling fast? Are we letting people book 7 to 10 days out? That's just a recipe for no-shows on your calendar if we're doing that, right? Next step, number 2 in the implementation, coach over ego. And what does that mean? It means encourage feedback loops with your team at daily huddles, at open communication channels where mistakes are normal and improvement is coveted, right? So Everybody's going to make mistakes. Don't demonize it. Don't beat people up for it. Hey, thanks for the feedback. Now that you know that made that mistake, I can go change this. I can go build an SOP about that. I can train the next rep to overcome this, right? Use all feedback, positive and negative, to improve your process in every step of the way. So a quick little checklist of everything we covered in all these sessions, and I'm going to go back through. Again, it's probably not going to be down till like, number 7 on what we really covered today. Most of them are going to be recapping lessons 1 and 2 on this particular document, but I still want to give a full recap because there are a lot of people that are here that watch some of those other ones too. So just to go back over what was covered in all 3 of these lessons, and a great little recap for those people that may not have seen it. First, calendar and coverage. Add weekend slots. That's something we've done recently, and as I've alluded to on the call a couple of times, Jen, who has joined, is our new weekend rep. That was one thing that we embraced, and we've opened up our calendar. When I covered that lesson, just to review really quickly, I realized when I looked at 5 other large software companies that were, I wouldn't say competitors, but people serving a similar market, and they're at a higher trajectory in their business where I would like to be, right? When I got behind the scenes and broke down those 5 companies, that was the biggest thing that stood out, is they had their calendar open 7 days. We only had ours open 5. Just by going from 5 to 7 days in calendar availability, these companies on average increased their call bookings at about 29% annually, and their annual revenue of more than 21% annually. So simple tweak right there, very simple thing, can drive more revenue. Shorter time, so set 15 to 20-minute increments for appointments rather than those 45 to 60-minute strategy sessions or whatever people are calling them nowadays. Works much better, and we can fit more appointments in a day. It just, I covered that all in the lesson, but there's a few benefits to that. Train reps on pull-up calls during off time. What does that mean, pull-up calls during off time? That means during your off time, you can be doing 2 things. I kind of covered that on the thing. So pull-up calls means pull-up calls to review. It also means pull up other calls or prospects that you need to get back to. So if I have off time, somebody no-shows, my reps are very diligent. They know, oh, I got a no-show. Let me go back in my pipeline because Josh and Bob said they want a second call and we haven't dialed that in yet. Or I have some off time. Let me pull up one of my recent call recordings and let me go through and criticize or find some of my mistakes or where I could have improved. So training your reps to use their off time diligently and how to improve, because it is still time that they were supposed to be taking calls. I'm not saying in their off time like when they're at night with their family, just off time throughout the day when something comes up. So as I talked about speed a couple of times, instantly response. So our CRM, the way we have it set up, auto assigns leads within under 1 minute. Somebody books in our funnel, clicks on our ad, they're in our CRM in less than a minute. It's assigned to Jen, Adrian, Mark, Jordan, whatever rep that it gets scheduled to within our round robin system. The call now CTA on the funnel page, which again, I covered during that lesson. That's a bit lengthy. I'm not going to dive too much into that right now. Tracking speed to lead daily. So maybe not a lot of you guys on this call, but just ask yourself, even if you're booking calls yourself manually, you're running ads for yourself, you have a bigger team, whatever. Does anybody, if you ask yourself honestly, do you know your speed to lead right now? Do you know when somebody books or shows interest and raise their hands, how quick we actually reach out to them? And if not, you might want to find a way that we can track that, right? A lot of people aren't even aware of that, right? Again, these are more about team trading cadence. So I'll go through this quick because I know a lot of people on here aren't running or managing sales teams yet, but I know I do have a few people in DaaS that have their own DaaS sales teams. A few clients reached out to me who are they're at the point where they're ready to build one. So I know some of you guys are at that stage, but I also know it's a smaller percentage, so it's not going to be applicable to everybody. But daily huddles, role play sessions, going over call audits, brainstorming what they're seeing in the pipeline and changes that might need to be made in marketing, all those type of things. Sales and marketing need to have an open dialogue and communication. So sales can be like, hey, we saw a quality dip or quantity's improved, and we can go back and see what's changed with the ads, the angles and the hooks, and really be able to diagnose what's working and what's bringing in that higher quality or that higher quantity or whatever's working, right? Weekly one-on-one reviews with your reps, setting up weekly, what we would call, I left the E out, weekly game tape with sales and customer support. That's just kind of a review of how everything's transitioning. And I talk about that. That's going to be talked about a little later in this. And then leaderboard for show rates, closers, et cetera, et cetera. It's good to gamify your process and celebrate leaders and show them some accolades, right? We talked about this in the pre-call prep. Now, if you're a rep, again, business owner taking calls myself, a rep taking calls for somebody else's offer, what have you, anything to do with sales, the pre-call process and the sales call process and the closing techniques, 4, 5, and 6 are all going to be more and more applicable. So I talked about the BAMP process. And yes, you can switch this acronym in any way, shape, or form. But really, these are the 4 main prerequisites that we need to have to get somebody into a buying pocket and ultimately make a decision, right? Is it within their budget? Did we create the right authority? Is there a need for this solution, this product? And is it the right timing? All those things take account. And again, I covered that much more in depth in that lesson. Just the pre-call 5-minute SOP that I covered again. I think a lot of people literally just get to their call, get to their computer desk or their Zoom screen 1 minute before a sales call, bring up the prospect in the CRM, click on the Zoom room, and they jump right in and they're like, hey, Joe, where are you calling in from? And they didn't do any research or don't know anything about them. So within our process, and most of you guys, as you grow, should build this out. We did this manually before we had it automated or in CRM, but there's going to be notes about the prospect. There's going to be notes. There's going to be notes and a form fill, so we can go in and see their prerequisites. What industry are they in? How much money are they making? We kind of know going into the call. Okay, we know what to talk about. We know kind of how established they are. And as I've talked about before, guys, we're going to talk to a lower sophistication or a brand new person in this space, a lot different than a more sophisticated or more established business. A guy doing 5K as opposed to a guy doing 500K a month. Those conversations are night and day, how I'm going to talk to that person, what I'm going to talk about. So the more I know going in, the more I can just dive right in and be on the same page, right? And edify the closer in communications. I've already talked about that a couple times, but that's just really giving people props and calling them out for doing their job, doing a good job, and giving them some flowers, as they say. So this sales script and process. In the document I've already shared with you guys here in the Zoom chat on today's call, I've given you 2 scripts. They all fall within this framework, this closer framework. This closer framework, I showed you, and I did that lesson. That would have been on day 2 of or episode part 2 of this document. I went through that framework, and that is all built within the scripts that I've given you. The ones that I've given you in that document are just much more specific to this offer, this industry, and that closer framework. That was more of a general framework that I could kind of put into any sales script that I'm building. So that's why I wanted to have it in here. So emphasize ask over talk. And what does that mean? That means really embrace active listening, asking the right questions, and getting your prospect to open up and letting them talk. I like to say, and I've become better and better at this, this is something I had to work on because you guys might be able to tell I'm kind of a talker, but letting the prospect talk more, right? And ideally, in the best calls, when I analyze dozens and dozens, if not into the hundreds, the best calls are when the prospect's talking about 70% of the time, especially when you get up to the pitch, right? Once you get to the pitch, yes, the closer is going to talk a little more because now you're presenting and then you're kind of taking the lead and running it from there. But prior to the pitch specifically, the prospect should be talking at least 70% of the time. And as I've mentioned, this is the best framework I've seen over and over again for overcoming objections, what we call our AAA framework, and how to dive into that. And as I covered, I'm going to go back into that really quickly, just because that one's really, really important and people ask about it. The AAA framework, and I have a whole nother document showing you like the whole conversation and how this works and with the transcripts and like, hey, what the prospect said, what the rep said, but it's really just acknowledge where they're coming from, agree with their situation or their experience and where they're coming from. So we're acknowledging, we're agreeing, and then we're asking a question a layer deeper. And a great example is, hey, Ray, I know your audience lab and all we talked about today sounds great, but I tried a different data provider in the past and I didn't see results. So I'm really hesitant or skeptical to even think about investing into data again. Hey, Joe, I totally get where you're coming from. And even the fact that you've actually tried data means you see the value and you understand data can be relevant in your marketing. But it sounds like, if I'm not mistaken, you might have had some over-promising and under-delivering in terms of the match rates and historical accuracy. So let me ask you real quick, Joe, if your accuracy of that data with Zoom Info was closer to 80% and not 40%, do you think you would have saw a return on your investment? Right? So I'm acknowledging where he's coming from. I'm agreeing, hey, man, there are a lot of people saying one thing and you're really getting this. But I'm going to ask a question that's going to go one layer deeper and really get into the quality of the data, comparing apples to apples, right? A lot of these objections are going to be apples to oranges when with all companies in all industries, and I'll keep it more particular to data, not all data providers are created differently. We have different accuracy, we have different match rates. Hell, ZoomInfo can't even get you B2C data. They can't get you identity resolution. So night and day, right? So if somebody's tried something, didn't have success, let me point out the differences. And hey, if you had these tools and these features, do you think you would have success, Joe? Oh, hell, now that you mention it, if I did have that, I probably would have done better. Cool. So that being said, what about if we at least start you off in our entry-level program? You won't be out more than $500. Give this data a try. Best case scenario, you get data that actually works. We can talk about a longer term, relationship. Worst case scenario, you're out $500 and I probably didn't take away your mortgage or, your dinner, your food off the dinner table, right? Boom, boom, boom. So again, I went a little more in depth, but that's just a quick little example of the AAA framework. I would use that whether they said, I've been burned by another provider. I'm currently working with another company. If I got a spouse objection, if I got a business partner objection, I still use that same framework over and over and over again, and it doesn't change. It works very, very well, actually. Closing techniques. So as I talked about toward the end of session 2 of this 3-part series, for lack of a better phrase, no random price discounts. Hopefully you guys aren't using that as a tactic, because if you just randomly price discount when you get an objection, you're actually lowering the value and quality of your service and you're dropping your authority down, right? So I talked about that a lot more in the lesson, but I just don't recommend random price discounts, especially not if that's your solution to overcoming an objection. That's never going to make you be seen as a more valuable commodity. It's going to be seen you made as you bended and broke and dropped your price just to appease a client and make him happy, right? And odds are that's probably going to come in and be a client that, for some reason, is just going to be a problem client. I've just found that working with more and more people. Use a few different close mechanisms or techniques that we talked about in that particular lesson. The mechanic close, the zoom out close, the best case, worst case close, as universal backups. If you're ever stuck or not quite sure what to say or how to position it, use one of the 3 techniques that's kind of tried, tested, and proven, and just kind of have that in the back of your mind as a backup. Reinforce the sale with the immediate next step. The acronym's not going to make sense unless you go back up or you saw that lesson. But what that really means very simply is, guys, once you close a sale, don't just say, okay, Bob, we just collected payment. I'll be sending you an email in the next day or 2, and we'll be sending over some resources. Keep your eye out. Actually actively get the next steps. Get his onboarding set. Get his onboarding pack sent over. Get his initial resources. Get him moving and getting actionable steps right now from the second you collected. It's going to keep them more active. And it's also where I've seen the most kind of buyer's remorse for people, coming back a day or 2 later and feeling skeptical or apprehensive about their purchase into a program, is really where they bought something and they didn't see anything come over to them for a couple of days. So now they're already just kind of freaking out, and every kind of red flag is raising in their head. We can overcome that by just doing next steps right when we collect the cash. Very easy to do. I covered it kind of on that last session. And then mindset and culture, guys, we covered it here today, so I don't have to recap too much. But the 3 main takeaways for there were weekly success stories, if you have a community, and testimonials to build conviction. More for you guys in sales reps, the more testimonial tie into prospect would be the most relevant one that I covered. Encourage trash leads equal golden practices for novices. Meaning, when people don't have a lot of skill set, you don't have to give them the highest quality people. Just get them more reps, get them more experience, get them more active, and just get their head in the game more and get them feeling more confident. It's not about closing deals. It's about getting there and getting reps right off the bat. And then keep a helpful guide posture. Measure success by the client's results, as we always should be. I think that should be a given. It's kind of sad that we even have to say this nowadays, to measure success by the client's results, because a lot of people measure success by the cash they collected, by the revenue they did, all kinds of other metrics. Like if your clients aren't getting results, you're not going to have a business for very long, right? That's the bottom line. And then here's the conclusion of kind of everything I went through in the document. I did a quick recap of the checklist. The conclusion is this: if you run a sales team or you are a rep and implement certain things, the conclusion is more geared toward teams, but there's, again, certain things that would apply to individual reps. But basically, by following this SOP and going through, understanding my 3 lessons I did on this, you replicate the same approaches that have been proven to close thousands of deals and supercharge your sales organization. The 5 biggest takeaways I would say on this particular lesson. Hold on, we've got somebody coming in real late. There we go. The 5 biggest takeaways I would say are: sell more days and respond faster, right? We covered all this in the recap, so I'm just going to go through this really, really quickly. But sell more days, respond faster. That's something we certainly embraced and implemented into our business. Consistent sales training and role play. Again, something that we do regularly. A meticulous pre-call and in-call execution, definitely something for your reps to focus on, whether that's you taking the reps, whether you have a rep, whether you're hiring a rep. Make sure that they understand the simple pre-call and in-call execution frameworks. That would be very, very helpful. Close properly and reinforce. Don't lose deals in the weeds or after the yes. And after the yes is really the reinforce and giving them next steps immediately rather than just saying, yeah, you'll receive an email, keep your eye out or whatever, right? And then the mindset of caring and volume. Care about the prospect's outcome, obviously, and push high activity, trust the fundamentals. And when you implement this process right into your sales team, this is what we've seen over and over again. Immediate revenue lifts from the outside call multipliers and the long-term exponential growth from building a well-trained, high morale, high skill set sales team that can implement, track, iterate, and open up that feedback loop for constant, improvement. Watch your whole sales team and process transform. So guys, just to recap, when I drop this replay today, in the replay, in the description, it's going to have the links to number 1 and 2. It's also going to have the link to this document, which I really didn't want to share. People were asking me after lesson 1 and after lesson 2, and I'm never against sharing it, which is why I'm giving it. But I hate sharing something before I teach it because people either won't understand it or they're going to go implement it wrong. So I just wanted to get through the whole document and teach all 3 parts of this lesson before I shared the document with everybody. But when I post that replay within the hour or so in your school community, you'll be able to watch, this one back, lesson 1 or 2 if you missed them, and you'll have access to this document in there. And that's kind of my spiel for right now. Let me go back. I don't see any questions in there. Jen, really quickly, I referenced you a couple times. If you would just unmute, and there's a couple times I had highlighted interactions with you, how you were able to, like in your role play, tie me or me as your prospect to another client testimonial, how you were able to jump in and wanting to get reps immediately and how that's important for a rep. So I would just like to hear from you. If you can elaborate on any of those things or just give me your train of thought, I think that'd be valuable for everybody.
Okay, cool. Hey, Keenan, I think I worked with you at a different location. How's it going? Yeah, entrepreneurial place to be is Audience Lab. But yeah, obviously we are working with the master with Ray. I've learned so much and I really appreciate being on the team. But one of the things that I think that you're talking about, Ray, is look, there's a lot to Audience Lab. And I guess, if you guys feel intimidated at all, at the end of the day, you're selling something, as Jesse says, that really sells itself. Like data is the new oil. Like, in a business, he who controls the data, like all business is like, leads and sales. So he who controls the data kind of controls like the money. And you know what I mean? So to kind of like take a more lean back view, because sales is like a weird word. I really love the way that Ray does his calls. It's almost more like customer service. Because that's how if I can approach it that way, then I'm less adversarial, which I love. And then I have like a deeper relationship. Like I literally had a guy yesterday being like, Jen, we need more data. How do we go about doing that? And like asking me to upgrade and like I'm going back and forth, which is awesome. Like they just enrolled last week and these guys are young and just hungry and you know what I mean? Like they don't have a big business, but they figured out how to like just turn this around. So I mean it does sell itself. You just gotta kind of pick your partners, is it the pixel that you wanna kind of identify, because I think that's a really great way to win for your clients. Is it just leads list? I got kids coming in here that they get paid per lead and then they get paid on the sale. Like I'll give you an example, roofers. Okay, so they're selling leads to roofers, 25 cents a lead. And if that lead comes in, it's between $600 and $800 to these kids, whatever, they're 20-year-olds and businessmen. And they've crushed it. They figured out they got a taste of the leads from somebody else selling it, quite frankly, like you guys. And they figured it out, came to the source, came to me, and now they're like coming in and paid in full. So I'm really excited to work with those guys. That's a lot of money for them. So I don't know. I think you asked me like a specific question about how I attacked it. Like when I didn't necessarily know exactly what this is. And it's more like, you just get on the phone and you just figure out, okay, who are you? What's your number one problem? What do you have going on in your business? Like we have people in Audience Lab that have a baby business and they're just starting out. And we have whale clients that are like, how much data can you give me? Like, I want to know cost per acquisition. You better know your shit. So, you know what I mean? You gotta be able to flex. It's all about like, okay, I'm not making you a pitch. I'm listening deeply to like what's gonna move the needle for you. And that's usually about money in business. So it's like where's this gonna make you the most money?
Yeah,
Does
and
that
I think as a sales rep, selling data, one of the best questions you can ask somebody, and that's something a lot of times people overlook when you're on a sales call, and like one of the typical frameworks or sales scripts that everybody sees is like intro and rapport, break the ice, intro and rapport, dive into discovery or the intel phase or whatever you call it, dive into the problem, effectiveness of the problem, then dive into solution. And when a lot of reps think solution, they start to talk about their solution. Like, hey, our solution is this. Like, hey, we went through discovery. We know you're the right person. We went through your problem. You're definitely suffering from the problem I solved. So let me dive into the solution. Where I go the other way there is I pivot. When I go into solution, I would say, hey, Jen, so if you're to partner with a data provider or have a data provider provide data for your ads, for your marketing campaigns, in an ideal world, what would be the solution or what would be the result you would love to see? Right? And get them to talk about what they want for an ideal solution. That really helps how I go customize my pitch for that prospect. If they tell me they want to see lower cost per acquisition and they want to see resolved identities of bounced visitors, I know two things I'm going to focus on when I get to my pitch for that guy. So I kind of always customize my pitch. Again, within an Audience Lab, I could take 8 sales calls in a day. I could pitch it 8 different ways depending on who I'm talking to because there's so much to cover. So like by asking, hey, in an ideal world, if you're to get data and implement it into your campaigns, what's an ideal solution look like for you? And they're going to start talking about that. Well, I'd see lower cost in ads. Hopefully I could expand to other channels and loop this into my email, right? And they're going to start to talk about that. Then when I pitch, I'm like, sweet, now I know exactly how I'm going to pitch to this guy. And then when I get to the end, I could be like, hey, Jen, based on everything I just showed you, do you see a clear path on how you could lower cost per acquisition and resolve some of them bounce visitors? Oh, yeah, Ray, I totally do. Right. So like, that's a really good question to ask to really understand how I'm going to kind of present.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it's that discipline to actually hold back because this is a really big solution, and it's like if you start going down that rabbit hole, then people get overwhelmed. And I'm like Ray, I can like talk fast and like dazzle that, you know what I mean? I can like really like pour it on, and very quickly that goes from oh how charming to what the fuck was too much. And so I have to like rein it in a little bit and yeah, just kind of tailor it. Like, would that make you? I love the question that you asked, Ray. Is like, would that be enough data for you to make some money here? Like, I think that I heard you ask that on a call that I reviewed, and I thought that was great because even just in our lower tier like DaaS solutions, like it's a ton of data. Like they're 4-list B2C, right? And like and I mean it's a lot.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Let me get to these. Let me get to these last couple of points here in the comments real quick. So, Carrie, can you unmute for 1 second? You said at some point, can I ask you about the sales process for canvassing and selling lists as a starter? So, do you just mean and clarify? You just mean what's the best process if I just want to pull a list and just go sell them a la carte to a business?
Yeah, because I'm just starting out, and I figured that's like a very simple way to maybe step my way in. So I figured I would just email, some businesses something to the terms of like, hey, I have a list of like 20 some names and addresses in your city who recently searched for blank. Do you want these leads? And I know I'm going to get a bunch of yeses, but I'm just curious. Number one, was that a decent opener that you would take? And number two, once they say yes, how would you go about facilitating the sales process? Because just like send them the leads and then goodbye. It's like maybe it's send them in and hook them in for a call or check back in 30 days. So how would you go about that?
Yeah, totally. So no, that's not a bad outreach message, especially if you know you're hitting the right niche, the right industry, and you're not just making up those numbers, right? So if you say you have X amount of leads, make sure you can actually provide that. Don't just say stuff to say it. A lot of times my initial outreach will be a little more vague, like the first email or the first message to a potential prospect. Hey, Carrie, have you ever thought about using in-market intent-driven first-party data in your marketing to actually be able to target your ideal clients or your real ideal customers? By doing this, we've seen our customers be able to drop their cost per lead and acquisition by anywhere from 25 to 40%, right? Or hey, what if I could get you an in-market, intent-based list of first-party data of your ideal clients to blast into all your marketing campaigns, whether that be email, SMS, ads, whatever you're using. So you can start a little more vague, or you can get much more specific. If you already know the numbers you're pulling and the niche in the industry, yeah, make it much more specific and custom. I usually start off a little more vague, and those are kind of the terms you're going to hear me say over and over again in scripts, in sales calls. You're going to hear me say a lot: in market, intent driven, first party data. Like that's kind of the benefit of what we have and what helps us separate. From the sales process, what I would do if they said, yes, I'm interested, they just, raise their hand. Yeah, Carrie, I'd be open to seeing how I could get those leads or getting some in-market first-party data into my marketing campaign. Yeah, what I would do from that point, I would have a quick little 4 to 7 minute video showing them kind of how you pull these lists and how you've done it for another client, or even if you haven't, right? How you would do it for another client. You might not have already done it, right, Carrie? So whether you have or hasn't, I don't think is too applicable, but just a quick little video showing them the process. Hey, this is the exact process on how we build your list. Now let's hop on a brief 15-minute call after you jump through this video so I can get all the parameters you're looking for. I can know your ideal client, what zip codes they're in, right? So I can make sure I hone in this list for you, and we'll talk price and see how it works from there. So my point would be send your initial message, get them to raise their hand, send a short little video explaining how we do what we do, and book them in for a 15 to 20-minute call. How I would price it is very simple to start. I mean, until you really know the niche in the industry and what they're getting as a result, just a very baseline minimum to just go pull lists and sell them for $500 all day easily. If you can charge more and you know you can, great. But I don't know what program you're in. Let's just say you're an incubator and you have access to 4 lists per month. If I could pull 4 lists and sell them at $500 a piece, that's $2,000 a month. What's the incubator cost? $400, $500. So even if I just did that, it's a 4-to-1 X return on your incubator, cost. So that's a very streamlined, basic way to look at it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, just make sure I have it right, is here's an offer. Are you interested? They say yes. Send them a link to cool. Here's a video of me explaining how this list is gathered. Book a call so I could get into the details of making sure that the list I'm making for you is right and matching what you're looking for. And then during that call, attempt to sell. And I guess if I can't sell for some reason, or I guess you could use, money back guarantees, or here's a quick sample, and then I'll get back to you or let's connect again in 2 weeks. If I guess I have to go down that route when I can't make a sale off the spot, right?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, at a $500 list, it's not going to be like a budgetary restraint for companies. You know what I mean? There's very few deals you won't be able to close unless it's just totally not the right person, right? I don't think it's a great question. I don't think you have to worry about that much. I think if you get on the right call with the right person who has interest, and then you really listen to them and hone in the parameters, right? What zip codes do you work with? What keywords are you looking for? What niche and industry? When you get all that down, you're like, hey, Mr. Client, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my super graph. I'm going to build you that in-market list. I'm going to have that audience for you generated within 24 to 48 hours. I charge at one time $500 per list fee. And once you get this, you can loop this into your ad campaigns, into your email, into your SMS, and run all your marketing. Let me know when you're ready for another list.
Cool. All right. Sounds good. I'll give it that test. And then I'm sure if I encounter some hurdles, I'll let you know and see how you go about them.
Cool. Augustine, you were saying in the chat, so I understand the whole platform. I'm new to the whole Audience Lab platform. I understand data is king. Having a hard time seeing the results of the data, if that makes sense. It can make sense. Yeah. We build lists for chiropractors and upload them to Facebook account and also create a like audience. And the amount of leads has drastically gone down from 5 a day to only get 2 leads per day. Really quickly, are you still on here, Augustine? There you are. What's the ad spend on that daily?
So we're doing $65 a day.
$65 a day.
Yeah.
It should be performing.
I know, that's what I thought. I'm like,
have you attended the media buying session and got with our media buyer, Jeremy or Mohammed?
I have. I've gotten with Jeremy, and he said, yeah, to keep it wide open on the Audience Lab side, and just to obviously use the geo targeting on the Facebook side to make sure we don't go to different states and stuff, because they're not going to want to come to a local chiropractor. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, totally. No, that 100% makes sense.
So yeah, I don't know what's.
Are you using a video on the ad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I only use videos. But I don't use the boring videos that a lot of other chiropractic offices use, which is just them doing a neck adjustment and them speaking in the background. My creatives are more I guess, flashy to help people stop scrolling.
And if you get a chance, I mean, the best way I can help or give you some feedback on that is to actually see the process. If you could send me over the link where I can actually see the funnel and the campaign, I could probably give you a little more insight on that side of things if I see anything. And what I would say, if you've already got with Jeremy and you're 100% sure, like you're very sure you dialed in the right audience and you have the right parameters and it's all built properly, I mean, I'll go check with those guys. Those guys will be able to give me a little more feedback, but I would kind of want to see the funnel and the copy that you're using. If you could shoot me the link either via email or in school DM or whatever, I can give you some insight on that.
Okay, I'll create a Loom video for you.
Cool. If I can see that, I can give you much more insight than just reading what I'm seeing here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, man.
Cool. Keenan went on to say, I have a prospect that I know has a ton of traffic and a high spend. I got him hooked on the in-market intent play, but when I pitch them monthly, I think I may have underpriced at $2K a month for just data piped in and refreshed. My question is, what happens if they need more data? If they need more data, I would be charging more. I don't know how you worded it, Keenan. You should never say you're going to get unlimited or, you know, unlimited amount of lists at a price. I'm hoping that's not what you quoted.
Yeah, I didn't say unlimited, but I did like kind of just say like flat, we'll take care of you just in general. Like it was kind of like a flat answer. I have to see what I said, but I definitely didn't say unlimited. And like their expectation there was that there would be some sort of scale with it. So I think in coming back to them, I can present a scale, but like literally I signed up like last Thursday and I just didn't. I just had the kind of that 3-step, you know, model, and now Jen. Hey Jen, by the way, I was muted the other day. She's talking about like you can charge up to 10K for 1 pixel, which is wild. So I'm just trying to see like how to like offer scale in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, well, what I would do if that's what you're quoting at a 2K price point when you're selling the data, piped, refresh, all that, I would specify going forward, I can do 2K a month. That's going to get you up to 4 data lists. So I'm going to pull a fresh one for you each week of the month. Once we need more lists, it's $500 per list, right? So like you got to set the expectations right in the beginning. And I totally get it. I'm glad like you're brand new to this. You just went and ran with it and started selling things. So you're going to underprice. I mean, you're not going to get it perfect the first time. Better that you just did it. But yeah, going forward, that would be the expectation. So if you want my data services, my retainer is 2K per month. That's going to get you a fresh list pulled, you know, once per week or 4 lists per month. Now we can pull that for the same audience. We can pull 4 separate lists, multiple audiences, whatever you want. 4 lists per month. Keenan, if by chance we're running more ad spend, we're running more marketing, and we need 5, 6, 7 lists, it's a one-time $500 per list for each additional one.
Okay, that's a good way to kind of come back from it, and I think that's solid. But while I got you up, Jen, you mentioned this lady charging 10K a month for 1 pixel. Like, what do you know what that's based on, or how?
Yeah, it's like it's so great because it's like supply and demand. So this was a success story that I actually heard from one of the guys at Audience Lab, and he was like the best success story that I've ever heard. This is Louis. Is that somebody literally just took one of the pixels and sold it to her client, slapped it on their website for 10K. Now, when you think about a pixel, it's so valuable. Like even at the DaaS 101, right? It's essentially converting anonymous, you know, cold website traffic into leads. And if you can spin that right into whatever you got going on in terms of Facebook ads or Meta ads, I mean, this is really high intent data because who trips on like Bob's HVAC website.com? Nobody, except for like me, because my friend Janet said, holy shit, your air conditioner is broken. You need Bob's HVAC.
I see. So that was a one-time implementation piece because essentially like you're going to just get data from it going forward, like very low work.
But the stats I've been quoting in my sales call is that like, you know, people are seeing, you know, 40, 60%, even let's just say on the low end, 25% of the website traffic that is totally anonymous. You've never seen it before. If you can actually retain that, what is that worth to you? We have a client in here called Sticker U, who literally did this with a pixel, and their average order value was like $280 for stickers. They did this, they recouped a bunch of clients that they didn't even know were looking for them. Within 30 days, they got an additional 47,000 like orders worth of orders. By 90 days, that turned into 200,000 just from one pixel. So like it is regenerative, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so it's
yeah.
a
So
lot
so
of
you
money.
can prove 100K in value and charge 10K
It
for it
matters,
on
and
a
it
one-time
matters.
thing.
Yeah, it matters the size of the pixel. That's why I was kind of asking.
Yeah,
I was like, "Are you
yeah.
DaaS? Like, what kind of pixel did you get?" Because you said this is a high volume website, so you want to be mindful of that. So I can run through the numbers with you, offline,
Okay,
sometime.
cool.
Yeah,
I just started like at the base, knowing that I could sell my way up. But yeah, if there's another pixel or something else that
yeah,
I might need, because I used to run traffic for these guys, and we spent like $1 million a month. So I know like we're like
yes, yeah.
we're
You
gonna
need
like whatever I've got in the system, they could probably absorb.
Yes, yes. I'm gonna reach out to you, okay?
Okay, cool, awesome.
First I'll see Ray, who owns Keenan in those systems. I'm a team player, but I want to help. I want to help you out because, like, I know you're hitting the ground running. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool,
and
cool,
Keenan,
cool.
I think you said you hopped in late as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I just hopped in and
So I put
I
this
saw.
link there again. This is something I
Thank you so
share on
much.
every one of our DaaS, data as a service sales sessions. So that document has just got 7 links, and that's everything you need to build out the best sales process. Most specifically, link 7 in there is what you were just talking about: ways to price the pixel. I have a pixel calculator in there to help you run figures. I have a whole tutorial on best ways to price that both on retainer or performance basis. So that document will have a lot of great stuff. I don't think, if you're new to the program, you just joined, and I'm not sure what tier did you come in. What program are you
Just
in?
like the incubator or the
Incubator. Okay.
is that even though yeah.
No,
But
that's great.
like
Either
with
way.
this, I'm like would be ready to scale. Like we've got a SaaS and stuff that like we're planning this to get to unlimited. So
Great. Well, if and when you do get to any of our DaaS programs, you'll end up getting some more one-on-one calls. You're going to get a one-on-one call with me where we're going to help you build out your fastest path to cash. And that's more where you're going to get more resources about how to resell. But
Okay,
for
cool.
now, in the incubator, what I just gave you in that doc is going to really help you set up a thorough sales process to help close this and probably answer a lot of your questions.
And by the way, like just what I heard in the 30 minutes or whatever since I joined, like I used to do sales consulting with a friend who we know working together. I was more on the marketing side, he was on the sales side. But for teams, like spot on, like everything that you were saying, like it's the huge needle movers that we were preaching as well. So
I appreciate you saying so.
Interested to get more into your stuff.
No, yeah, I always like to hear that feedback. I like that you reinforce that. I kind of know that because those were all data-driven decisions. Like I broke it down looking at sales teams and recordings, but it's great when people confirm that are working with other sales coaches or products or training, right?
We wrote the whole system.
We're not all doing things differently, right? It's just are we focusing on the needle movers, like you said? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Great point. So, Georgetta, if I pronounce that right, you asked where do I find the recording? So, in either of our school communities, I will have the recording to this posted usually within the hour. And when I drop it, it's also going to have the full SOP document that I covered today. And we'll also have the links to watch part 1 and part 2, because this is actually the 3rd session going over that very in-depth cutting edge SOP document. So give me about an hour. I will have it in a school post with the link right there. And then within the description of that video, you'll be able to see all the links and documents to everything else that correlate to this one. All right, guys, I got to run. I got another team meeting here in 5 minutes, and I will have the recording for you guys within the hour or so. Great. Thanks, Matthew. Thank you, everybody, for the questions and the collaboration here. Jen, thanks for hopping in. Always appreciate you, and I'll see you here in a few minutes.